And in the context of synaptic transmission, we began by talking about the various neurotransmitters. The three neurotransmitters to know for the unit 1 are glutamate, GABA, and acetylcholine, which is shown up here at the top. Acetylcholine is going to come up a lot more throughout the semester. Actually, all three of these are going to come up a lot more throughout the semester. Acetylcholine is particularly relevant for the next two diseases, which are autoimmune diseases that affect synapses from the motor neurons in the spinal cord that make synaptic connections onto muscles, called the neuromuscular junction. And glutamate is especially relevant as the excitatory neurotransmitter in the brain, and for some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about with obsessive compulsive disorder and some synaptic models of obsessive compulsive disorder. For glutamate, for all of the neurotransmitters, you should review the role of voltage-activated calcium channels, binding of calcium to proteins in the vesicles, release of neurotransmitters, and also think about the clearance of neurotransmitters. That clearance aspect is going to become more important in later units. Especially important for this unit are, first of all, the most common neurotransmitter in the central nervous system is glutamate. Glutamate binds to an ionotropic sodium channel or a ligand-gated sodium channel. A glutamate is the ligand, the external signal, binds to a channel, and unlike the voltage-activated sodium channels, which activate when a cell reaches a particular threshold voltage, the glutamate sodium channels activate when an external signal comes in from a presynaptic neuron. And that is what depolarizes our postsynaptic neuron to get it to fire its own action potentials. GABA, on the other hand, opens a chloride channel. And remember that chloride is at a higher concentration outside than in. And so chloride flows in and hyperpolarizes the neuron, makes the inside more negative, and makes it less likely that a receiving cell is going to fire action potentials. Acetylcholine has some roles in the brain that we'll talk about in the next unit. But for right now, acetylcholine is important for the neuromuscular junction. And at the neuromuscular junction, just like all synapses, when the action potential arrives in the presynaptic motor neuron, the axon that comes from the spinal cord and travels out through the periphery to the muscle, this causes the opening of voltage-gated calcium channels. Calcium flows in, calcium binds to proteins on synaptic vesicles, and then these synaptic vesicles, which were isolated bubbles, now become part of the presynaptic membrane, and the inside, where all the acetylcholine is now part of the extracellular space. Acetylcholine diffuses out, acetylcholine binds to acetylcholine receptors, and primarily lets sodium in. There's a little bit of potassium that leaks out, but much more sodium comes in than potassium leaking out. That means the muscle gets depolarized, more positive inside, and it reaches its own threshold, fires its own action potential, and contracts.